Right. I think you're the only one I've not met, Tom, actually. Do you want to have introductions or anything?
No, it's fine. I've
Okay.
no...
All right, and apologies for absence.
Everyone's here, Jay.
Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. None. Minutes to the last meeting. I think there's 3 of you here that was at the last meeting. Happy with the minutes of the last meeting?
Yes, I'm happy with it. I shared the meeting. I'm happy with it. Anyone?
Don't see any dissent. Okay, approved.
Yeah.
Human resources update, item 4. Senator?
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Chair. So this is, particularly for the benefit of new members of the committee, this is a regular report that we bring to HR committee. It's ordinarily a quarterly report, but most of the data in here is just for the 2 months because we haven't yet, or have only just completed as of yesterday, the first quarter of the year. So there's 2 months worth of data for the beginning of this year. And it's a report for noting for members about the key performance metrics and key HR metrics really for the organisation, and hopefully offers reassurance that we're on top of the prevailing issues. You'll see that there are a range of areas covered in here. So the first one being around staffing numbers and where we're tracking the trends around vacancy rates and across the various different elements of workforce that we've got. And I'd highlight that we have a higher than predicted turnover rate at the moment in our support staff. And that's something that we're doing a lot of work around, particularly reviewing recruitment and retention, a review of how we do that in order to make sure that we are attracting enough people and that they are minded to stay with us. There are, though, some positive. There have been successful recruitment campaigns during the year that have brought on some more on-call. So on-call are our firefighters who are not permanently employed as firefighters but are there on-call, in fact, who are coming in at a moment's notice. And we're about to launch a whole-time recruitment campaign that will launch during the summer with a view to training those new firefighter apprentices next April. So those are the kind of plans that we've got in place around addressing the gaps in the workforce at the moment. Sickness is another area that it covers, and those of you that are familiar with this committee, you'll know that we track this very carefully and are looking at ways, particularly at the moment, of addressing short-term absence as well as supporting people on long-term absence to get them back to work. And there's a very comprehensive employee assistance programme that we have in place and continue to push in order to ensure that we're supporting our workforce as best we can to enable them to be at work. Generally, our figures are a little bit higher than we would like to see them when we compare them nationally, and that's something that we're very, very mindful of and working on. Then at 2.21, there is just some other workforce metrics that we also look at, and there's very little really to report here. There's been, in this period, 1 grievance that's been heard and 1 harassment complaint that is currently under investigation. And again, for the benefit of new members, I would say that is a kind of typical number of issues that we would be facing in terms of grievance and disciplinary and that kind of thing within the organisation. Those are the key things that I would highlight, Chair, open to questions.
Okay.
And Tracy is the expert here, so if there are any sort of more detailed or technical questions, Tracy will be absolutely the person to be able to respond to them.
Okay, Jonathan.
Thank you, Chairman. So, thanks for the report, obviously, first of all. So, a couple of questions first of all. So, you talk about the plan to get down the level 6 absence. So, there's a line on there saying work be undertaken. I know you said there's going to be a plan. Can you tell us what that plan is going to be in addition to what's said around the support, includes the counselling, physiotherapy, etc.? Because you're quite right. When you look at the Appendix A, when I look at, for example, we are, I think, 6th or 7th on the list, and I look at Leicestershire, which is near the bottom, so we've got virtually double the rate of days off, and that's what I'm just comparing to as a like-for-like nearby authority, and look at some of the other ones. So I'm not going to compare Cumbria with a lot less fire station that we have. So it is quite a concern to see that high rate. It's just sort of understanding, are we speaking to also our fellow local fire authorities to sort of see what they're doing differently, because maybe they're doing something we've not thought of yet, and
Yeah.
like I say, what our other plan is to look at getting this rate down.
Yeah, so I'll start, but Tracy will come in perhaps with some of the details. So there are a few things, and we wouldn't want to sit here and make excuses, but it's probably right for me to explain that the data is not always comparing apples with apples. So what we have done throughout the whole pandemic period is report our sickness absence that relates to COVID as well.
Yep.
It's not clear that all fire services have done that, so that may create an anomaly. Also, there are different levels of sickness across different types of the workforce, and some areas, it's typically higher in the on-call cadre than it is full-time and support staff. Looking into the reasons around that is one of the things that we'll be doing, but also the makeup of the workforce across those different fire and rescue services will mean that, again, we may never be able to completely compare. Nevertheless, we would like to be higher up the table. In terms of the actions that we're taking, well, we've always had a meeting where we look at some of the long-term sickness cases and make sure that they're being managed and the employees supported in the right way. We're now looking to do the same around short-term absence, so looking again at what the trends are, what might be the prevailing issues that are causing those trends, and what we might need to do to both support and manage the workforce around that, and hopefully drive down some of those figures. And Tracy, I don't know if you would like to come in.
I suppose just to say that probably, and this has been a long-standing issue for the members of the committee that have seen these reports coming through, that the two main reasons that we have for sickness absence are musculoskeletal, which you will understand given the context of the work that operational firefighters do, and also after that it's mental health issues. So we are very much concentrating on those things. So in terms of musculoskeletal, we obviously have a fitness advisor, we have physical training instructors on stations that work with people, so if they have an injury they can help to rehabilitate them through exercise. And we're also introducing a pilot programme this year around strength and conditioning, because one of the issues we understand is that as the workforce ages, which it will do because the pension regulations are changing, so in the future people will be more towards 55, 60 operationally when they retire under the new regulations. So we're seeking to sort of, from very early days, start building up core strength. So rather than people, being able to run marathons or being very aerobically fit, we also want them to build up their core strength, because that will mean in the longer term their fitness will extend longer and they'll have less injury. So we're going to start that programme this year, start bringing that in, seeing how that works. And in terms of mental health, we have quite a lot in place already. We have links into Relate, so people are able to have counselling through Relate. They've started in the last, since April really, coming on site for half a day of the week, so that if people want on-site counselling, they can access that. We have an employee assistance programme, so people can 24/7 they can ring the helpline with any issue. Actually, it just doesn't have to be for counselling; it can be any issue, because at the moment, obviously, financial pressures might be one of the issues that are affecting people, and get advice around that. And we've recently just signed up to the Blue Light Together campaign, which is championed by Mind. And it's all of the emergency services who have signed up to it, so fire, police, ambulance, paramedics, so a whole group of emergency responders. And that's going to focus on sort of putting information out there, giving people access to information as well, and then having a standard across the emergency services for us to aspire to and work towards. I mean, we think we've got a lot of that in place already, but obviously there will be things that we'll learn from other responders and things that we will be putting in place. So those are the sorts of things that we will be doing.
And I think that's great to hear that. I think what I'd say is going forward is have that in an action plan, so we can see that and members of the public can, because it's not like doing some good things, but if you were to just read this report, stand alone, you think we're not doing anything, because it just says like we're going to do this. So I think just that transparency would be great. And for short-term absence, do we do return to work interviews, Tracy?
We do,
okay.
yes.
Okay.
We have quite a robust attendance management policy. So
Yeah.
everybody, no matter how short or long the absence,
Yeah.
will have a return to work interview. We have triggers, so there will be points at which people have either three periods of absence or more than 12 days absence, where they will go into a trigger and review
Yeah.
process. And obviously, more long-standing absence, we would refer them to our occupational health team to get some advice.
Great. And if we just one further recommendation, Chairman, don't worry, just to say that I think a breakdown of the absence would be good to see. So, for example, you say with people are off with muscular or stress, just so we can have that breakdown of absence as percentage, so that way you can see if there's a particular trend.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have that data, but if we were to that
Yes.
in line with this, because like you say, when you look at that as a standalone, that rate is not breaking down one particular issue where
Yes.
if it's 80% musculoskeletal, for example, that shows well actually there's a big
Yes.
issue there we need to
Yeah.
look at.
Normally what we would do with the report when we present the full report is because we've got a sort of curtailed
Yeah.
review period, so at the next meeting
Yeah.
we will bring all that information back. So we do break it down.
And like I say, like COVID, for example, if it was COVID was 60%, then we could say, well, hang on a minute, look, this is actually take out COVID, that's a percentage to give
Yes.
that true picture. Because say, I think that would be really helpful just to see,
Yes.
so we can obviously show that going forward. So thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Emma, if patients.
2.6 that says the review of a review of recruitment and retention is currently underway to identify and address the issues. What are we doing about? Mostly, I'm more interested in retention. So, what is the review you're doing about retention?
Yeah, we've recently set up a sort of working group to look at the reasons that people have been leaving us. Because last year, as I think it stated in the report, we had sort of really unprecedented turnover for support staff. So we have been looking, we hold exit interviews, not everybody wants to have one, but for those who do, we're going through the exit interviews to see, are there any trends here? Are there any sort of commonality about why people are leaving? So we will do that in a sort of quite structured way. I think what we will probably find, because obviously anecdotally people will tell us are they leaving and in their resignation letters and things. I think there's a variety of reasons. I think that post-COVID, I think nationally, not just within the fire service or the not fire service, people have been reviewing their lifestyles and what they want to do and deciding they're going to change, go in a different direction. So we've had some of that. I think, we can't ignore the fact we've moved to a new headquarters. Some people perhaps, have made a decision around whether perhaps the trip is longer or they're not quite so comfortable being here. So I think that there may be a small element of that in there. And I think, of course, pay plays a part, because public sector pay, as we know, is under strain. And a lot of people who have left have gone into the private sector, either because of the pay or because of the development opportunities that maybe they have there, that we're quite a small service. So I think there'll be, when at the end of this, I think there will be a variety of reasons why people have decided to move on this year. We do expect that to slow down during the course of this year. I think it was one of those anomalous years where there'd been a lot of change. And especially, I would say, post-COVID, people deciding they wanted to do something different or to work in a different way. So I think there'll be a number of reasons for that. But yes,
but what do we intend to do to
well, I think
help retention, retaining
once we
staff?
know what were the reasons, then I think we do have to look at issues like we do have to look at things like more flexible working. We've introduced agile working. And that seems to have gone down very positively, and there may be other things that we need to think about. There will be things where we will go to staff and say, what would make a difference to you? So we'll do a small sort of survey and see what people are telling us and respond to that. So,
Candida.
I think as well, and I'm straying in a way into the next item, but one of the things that we're introducing is a competency framework for our support staff that is kind of comparable to the competency framework that is there for firefighters and operational staff. And hopefully then that will give a clear framework for development of people in their roles and a proper, the ability then to really fulfil and to prove what they're doing, and us having trained them into it so that they potentially can work across the service in a range of different ways. So hopefully developing some of the roles that we've got as well that make people want to stay because they feel less pigeonholed.
Anybody else? Okay, so we can look at some of those issues to bring back up each time. I think really in a sense, in terms of the days and shifts lost per person, I know it's not apples and apples and, you know, and you know, I suppose authorities like Surrey and Cumbria and Cornwall and Bedfordshire are not much like authorities that have got Nottingham, Manchester, Liverpool in it. So certainly not apples with apples, but it would be really good if we could get down below that sort of median line. And get somewhere around there, and then we can sort of look at how we move forward to the long term. So I suppose in that then, I suppose really we can note the report and support the amended absence targets, which is going downwards, which hopefully will get us closer towards that, but I suppose that's the target and where we need to try and be. Okay, everybody happy to approve that? Okay. Going to item 5, workforce plan, Candida?
Yeah, so again, I'll kick off, Chair, and then I'm sure, you know, this is Tracy's piece of work and I'm sure she'll want to elaborate a little bit. So the report we've just looked at is our review, it's our look backwards. This is a report where we're looking forwards, and we will do this periodically for usually a 2-year period where we're projecting what is likely to happen with our workforce over the next couple of years and what measures we may need to put in place in order to address the trends that we're seeing emerge. I won't labour some of the review bits because in effect what we've just talked about really has kind of covers those, and it's slightly, I'm not going to go over it all again. But this report goes, or the actual workforce plan goes into a lot more detail and depth than the report we've just looked at. So it goes through looking at our whole-time establishment and outlines measures we've got in place to mitigate losses in firefighter numbers, for example. It highlights the fact that on-call establishment is always an issue for us and is an ongoing piece of work with a huge amount of attention on it to keep the numbers that we need to have in place in order for our establishment to be staffed. It also highlights again the issues that we're facing around the turnover rate around our support employees. Alongside that, we're looking then at the fact that we are trying to create a more diverse workforce, and that's the workforce plan highlights a range of actions that we're taking that we've got in place in order to improve the diversity and inclusivity of the workforce that we have. And although we have been making some progress in this area with a lot of effort put behind it, from an outside point of view, we probably still look not as diverse as definitely we would like to be. And so this is an area that we will continue to put attention on and is a priority within our community risk management plan. It would be remiss of me to highlight the fact that we are facing financial pressures, as is the whole public sector, and that will be an influencer on the work that goes on into the future. And in September at Full Fire Authority there will be some proposals coming forward because the bulk of our budget is spent on our workforce, and in order to create a balanced budget it seems impossible really that there would be no impact on our workforce. And so that work is ongoing at the moment with a view to bringing proposals through to Fire Authority in September. But I think the positive is that we understand very well our business, and hopefully that's what is shown in a report like this, that we understand what the trends are likely to be, what they have been, what they are likely to be, what the impact of that could be on the delivery of our service, and therefore where we can take action or it's not safe to take action in order to reduce costs. And so hopefully those are the things that are particularly set out. And Tracy, would you like to say anything further? Because there's a lot of
There's a
information
lot of
in here.
information in here, yes. I think some of it, as you say, we've already picked up in terms of where our challenges are. I think we're going out to whole-time recruitment at the end of July. I think the last time we did that was a couple of years ago.
Yep.
So we're looking to obviously address some of the current gaps in the operational ridership, and also anticipating retirements over the next 2 years, because clearly you can't just advertise for a firefighter as they leave and put them in post. So we do have campaigns, that they do last about 6 months in total, and it takes about just over 2 years for a firefighter to become competent. So this is the reason that we are looking 2 years ahead, because we know how long it takes us to both recruit and then develop people into competent firefighters. So that those plans are all in place. So obviously we want to give you members reassurance around that. And we've talked about the issues with support staff and what we're going to do to try and address those issues. And the focus again, clearly retirement age, impact of increasing retirement age on the workforce and what we can do to support that. We've talked about fitness and things that we're going to put in place around that. And also, as Candida said, focus very much on sort of being a more representative and diverse workforce wherever we can, really. So, yes, so just re-emphasising really what Candida has said.
Anybody?
I've got a few points, Chairman. First one just around the, on page 33. So given that there's potential to lose some very senior people with crew managers and station managers, what are we actually doing now to start our development? I mean, I'm sure development's underway, but as we all know, at that sort of level, you can't just be promoted up straight away. There's a lot of training development to go in there. So is that part of the forward plan you work on now to get people up to that level to ready to go?
Yes, we do. So we have development programmes in place. So we start really at firefighter level with an Inspiring Leaders programme.
Mm-hmm.
It's a voluntary programme. People can go on it and develop some skills, do some self-assessment, start to think about what it would feel like to be a supervisory manager. We have development programmes once you become a supervisory manager. And we also have a programme for people who are thinking of moving to station manager in the future. So it's about sort of giving people those baseline skills which will allow them then to apply for promotion and be ready really for when they take up their high level job. There's a number of things that we have in train at the moment. One of them is we have a strategic leadership development programme at the moment that we're running alongside Nottingham-Trent University and the City Council and some other local public sector partners, and that's about strategic managers. So we have, from sort of firefighter up to possibly principal officer, strategic managers. We are trying to put development in place so that people are prepared and ready when something should arise. At that level as well, we do obviously advertise externally as well to bring people into the service. And at national level, the NSCCC is starting a direct entry programme from, I think, this September. It's a bit of a pilot at first, but again, that will be another route in the future, perhaps 2 years from now, because I think it's a 2-year programme, when we will be getting candidates through another route into fire services. So yes, we do try to do a lot of work around anticipating and succession planning where we can.
No, sounds good, thank you.
So is there anybody else? No.
Sorry, just one point, thank you. So around just talk about apprenticeships and graduates. Obviously, talk about, I know we're doing some apprenticeship work because you've got the vacancy in finance, etc. So are we, where we're up to our apprenticeships and spending all our levy in terms of programme we have, do we feel there's room for expansion about that, to locally support roles behind the scene, not just firefighters? I know we've got great ones like in my patch of West Bridgford, we're winning the award there, but it's about what we're doing, perhaps the back of house systems, and also what we're doing around collaboration. So while we're in the same building as the police, things like around the finance side especially, is there ways to be looking at more collaboration with our partners, the police, because in the same building anyway, if we've got vacancies or perhaps they've got extra capacity, perhaps make something, not preempting your report for September, perhaps looking at what we can do to utilise the whole resource while we're here, and also with Derbyshire as well, with the flourish we've got there. I'm just thinking some of these roles we've got, if we're going to struggle to fill them, potentially, but there is that extra resource there, especially with what Blasey talked with finance, there is transferable skills between the two authorities, I would say, to be able to line that together.
Yeah. So you're right. Our whole our firefighters are all our new firefighters are all apprentices. I think we mentioned earlier about looking at recruitment and retention, and I think when we're looking at retention, the potential for bringing in apprentices and potentially graduate trainees around some of these various different functions is one of the options that might come forward as a proposal, because that is a way to recruit people, grow them, and hold on to them, hopefully. So it's one of the areas that we may well look at. I know we do have some permanent apprentice, don't we? Some is it 4 or 6 that we have?
Yeah, we have 4 what we call funded apprenticeships, which is basically there's a central pot.
Through the apprenticeship level,
and then
level,
within ICT and finance, they also have some posts which are substantive posts actually. So people come in as apprentices, get developed, and then actually take up the substantive role. So we've had a few people who have come through that route. We will be actually some of the apprenticeships are coming to an end this year, so we will be looking to recruit them as well. But it's something we would like to grow. Definitely. The thing with the levy is we fully utilise the levy.
No,
in fact, we take more out of the levy than we put in at the moment. But the thing with the levy is it doesn't allow you to pay the salaries of apprentices. So it pays for their training. But you obviously they still have to pay the salary.
I know I'm saying I was just to clear, it's my role at the county, I look at apprentices as well, but I've also written a letter with the chair and with the leader of the council to the Treasury to look at adapting levy, because the Chancellor did say in his spring statement they will look at adapting it to put in things like covering training costs. So if someone's driving to London, at the minute we can't pay that levy, as you know, we've got to pay that out of our own pot, so looking at ways to adapt it, so that's great. Also with the levies, you know, we can also pay that to upskill our existing staff to do extra qualification, hopefully with the retention and recruitment that can help as well. And also, if we are spending all our levy, but some of our council partners aren't, we can actually apply to take some of their levy, because every council or every employer can transfer 25% of their levy to another local business. So perhaps we should be approaching the local council, county, city, Gedley, etc. Say, if you've got any money in your pot, here's our please write us a cheque today, please, and we'll gladly take it, because if that otherwise that money's just going back to government, which let's keep it local. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? No? Okay, so it's a pretty comprehensive plan. I think we've got plenty to go at throughout the year, really. I think recruitment's simple in this job, really, when I have a look at it. It's kind of quite a high training level right throughout every single thing, we right down to the person taking the telephone calls right through to the end. So loads of training at every level. And it's a pretty unique job, I think, working for the fire service, really, and but it's one that's held in really pretty high esteem by the public, you know. So I think it's pretty important that we get well ahead of the game, really, and we do that in a really sort of very well planned way. So, and I think this plan goes somewhere to help to get to there. Go.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. Page 38, equality matter enhance. Second paragraph. BAME employees are also underrepresented in the sport role at 8%. 14 of the workforce women make up 45.4, 79 of those in sport role in the last year. 18.75%, 12 of the new starter were women, and 5 are from BAME background. And do you still looking for BAME women or males and that? Are you still looking if somebody applies for?
Absolutely, 100% we are, yeah.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
I'm also conscious that in these reports we're referring to the census figures that will be shortly updated. and actually will probably potentially show, well, they will show a much more diverse community than was the case 10 years ago. And so actually the figures we're looking at will probably be increased in terms of where we're trying to get to in order to make sure that our workforce is representative of our communities. But absolutely 100% we are looking for diversity within our workforce that reflects the community that we serve.
Thank you.
And I think that's,
And,
go on.
and can I say, good, yeah, you've been involved too as well in doing that, trying to help.
Yeah, yeah.
And being, like you did the last time, going on the radio.
Yeah, I
and
went
all
on the
that.
radio,
So
you know,
you-
Asian
yeah,
radio,
yeah,
Yeah.
to
yeah.
to inform the communities that we, you know, the Fire Authority looking for more, you know, the people to employ. And I think it has affected, but I think I want to go back again
Yeah, I think you
to
have
encourage
do
them
more.
to
Yeah.
come forward.
I think one of the challenges we face is that we're very effective at our whole-time recruitment, but I think potentially people out there in the community perceive the fire and rescue service, as having only firefighters and some people who probably work in desk jobs. And actually there are a huge range of
course.
professional opportunities across the service, and some of our most important functions are working with the community around prevention and protection. And those, you know, that's potentially a different kind of skill set, and actually having a diverse workforce that reflects the communities that we're out there talking to is really important. So I think as part of the recruitment and retention strategy, when we're ready with it, that will be something in there, is about how are we properly communicating and engaging and attracting a much more diverse applicant pool.
Yeah, thank you.
So just on point, Chairman, if I may, I think I follow the fire service on Facebook, for example. When you put an advert on there, we have a picture of our building and say we're looking to recruit a support officer for a role. Perhaps looking at how we are, so having a picture, you know, of the existing members of the team, or perhaps someone saying a bit about the role, who currently is in that role or a similar role, just to sort of encourage people. And actually that's from different backgrounds as well, because actually that's not really, if you just look at that quite dry, it doesn't really get your imagination. Obviously I'll look at it because I've got the best interest to look at it, but obviously people wouldn't. So perhaps just look at working with comms on that, about how we can look to make it more appealing as well. Because like I said, a picture of a building saying come and work for us as a, not, it wouldn't mind if it was a building facility, but it's not things like IT and finance. That's not really drawing people in potentially as much as we could.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you, and I think we've done some really good comms across social media around our functions and the work we do, that is showing the diversity of the workforce, but perhaps that hasn't always translated into our recruitment campaigns, and it's something that we are looking at as part of the review that we were talking about earlier.
I'll say videos like testimonials from some of our existing team about why we're such a great employer to work for, what we offer and everything else. I think that'd be, if I was looking to look for an employment job, that's what I'd really look at, sort of a testimony to say, well, why should I work there? Because of course we're going to say it's a great place to work, because of course I'm not going to say don't come work for us, it's rubbish, but actually hearing from people who are actually here and saying what they enjoy doing. We've seen that at the County Council with testimonies done from our graduates, and the feedback from the new intake graduates was that was one of the big things that drew them in, seeing existing graduates, and graduates went to recruitment fairs at the university, etc., saying, speaking to people of a similar age group, going, you know, rather than me turning out there as middle 30s going, what, you're too old to be here, you know, what you're here, but having someone there at the same age, same wavelength to encourage and talk to people, really draw people in.
Yeah. Point very well made. Go. I think we really do need massively to get to the communities that live in Nottingham and in the county. We need to get to all of those communities, and within them is not a very diverse workplace, and I think it's traditionally been that. But we do need to reflect the communities that we represent, and we need to get to them in whatever way. And I think some of the points that Jonathan made in terms of how we get to them is really quite important. So I do think it's something that we do have to kind of get right into the heart of the organisation, really, rather than it's kind of okay, I suppose, I was talking about it at this level here, and then hope that filters down. It won't. We need to make sure that every level right down to and even, you know, and I know it's difficult for the, you know, the on-call staff because they've all got to live within 5 minutes of the
Yeah.
station. So, but right throughout the rest of the organisation, we should be putting a rocket under that really, in a sense, and trying to make sure we move that forward. Okay, everybody happy to note that report?
Yeah.
So move on to item 6, exclusion of the public. Under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972. I don't think we've got any members of the public.
We don't, but Alex is going to, if we've stopped recording.